All right. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have the creator, as well as as well as everything else except for the line art of Red Ninja Momiji, Rodrigo. Rodrigo, thank you for joining me.
Thanks to you, Larry. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I was looking back over the art of Red Ninja Momiji, looking over back over the concept, and thinking in my head, the reason I gravitated towards it so much, it reminded me of a time in my youth when I was reading the Top Cow comics, like
Yes.
Witchblade, and unlike Witchblade, which I've gone back and looked at, I actually have a trade paperback of the first 8 issues in front of me right now. It doesn't quite hold up that well, but
It's possible. It's
but
possible.
well, a lot of it goes to the art choices as far as like double page spreads and certain things like that. But with yeah, with with Red Ninja Momiji, there isn't that problem. You didn't make it to you didn't turn it into a kind of an exact kind of copy of the comics of the '90s. It has its own voice, and it reminds me like one of those martial arts films almost, like the Hong Kong martial arts films, like a Jackie Chan film.
hmm
But
Well,
was that part of your inspiration, or
not really. I have a lot of inspiration of behind this character. Mostly is from video games. Characters
okay?
like Dante from Devil May Cry series or Bayonetta. From the same creator actually, Hideki Kamiya.
I could actually see
Uh,
that. I could actually see that now. That right there makes a lot of sense.
when I created when I created her, I was thinking if I could make a video game, what type of character I would like to create, and she was the result from that from that process.
Was a good. I mean, that's a good. That's actually nice way of coming up with a character and actually seeing her through that light now makes a lot more sense. I'm a big fan of Bayonetta,
Yeah,
as well as Devil
yeah,
May Cry as well. So yeah, actually seeing that, yeah, that, so and the action that like the video, that fast paced Bayonetta Devil May Cry action, I could clearly see it influenced you when you were writing it. Did you write the story as everything detailed, or did you thumbnail it out as well as writing it, or and then turn it in to your artist as like hand the thumbnails over, or was it all just on the written page?
Well, for me, it was a little difficult process because first I wanted a longer story. The story is like 40 pages, but I wanted like something like 80 pages. So I had to cut a lot of stuff in my mind and rearrange everything. Uh, First, I have a script, but as I was progressing, I made a lot of changes. It's not the exact same story I wanted, but it is close enough.
So that right there, you having to sacrifice because of certain reasons, and then going into as far as paring it down where it's still like I after reading it, I was talking to you about it, and you were saying how you had to cut it down, and it didn't feel like anything was rushed. I mean, like I like stories that leave me wanting more, and it left me wanting more, and it didn't feel like, oh, like there goes a big old chunk of it missing. Like they didn't feel, it felt
Uh,
natural. The ending felt natural.
well, now you are saying me you are sorry. You are telling me this to me, and I feel actually happy because when I was making this story, I had no feedback. I have friends who like comics or like video games or manga, but everybody has their own lives, and they didn't have really time to check it. So I have to go blind in that regard. So you telling me you like this the story and you think it makes sense. It actually makes me happy to know it.
Well, I'm glad to hear it because it's like because I was reading it, The main reason I think I came across your work is because after really at the beginning of the new year, the end of last year, the beginning of this year, there'd been this polar shift in comics. This enough is enough. You say these comics are bad, corporate, the big old industry comics, Marvel, DC, so on and so forth, even like Image or Dark Horse or IDW. It's like enough is enough, and these people, instead of doing something about it, like supporting, either not reading these books and complaining about it, looking at, hey, there are people people that love comics. They make their own comics. They are their own publishers. They do it. They do it themselves with photocopiers. They do it digitally and publish it digitally, like you. There's multiple different ways of putting your work out there. So let's support these people instead of giving money to a corporation who doesn't care for a character you may have grown up on and got you into comics. But at the end of the day, that money isn't going to that creator. That money isn't going to help that creator. But money going to basically a small business, because in many ways you're a small business, and supporting it that way, and that's the best way to be. And seeing it, I was like, I love the look of it. I love the very cheekiness, the very playful 90s kind of esque, that kind of the titillation. And
Yes.
there was actually a good story behind it. It was fun. I kind of love I guess the way I was looking at it, like what I carried with me was like the stuff from the 90s got a little bit of like a Terminator 2 vibe, John Connor and the T1,
Yes.
T800. But much prettier, much prettier.
Yeah, I that's actually a good observation. It's kind of based on Terminator 2, where the hero carries a young person, saves a young person. But part of my inspiration actually was Resident Evil 4.
That's because considering the creative staff, it's that right there is liquid. Except not as not as annoying, because Resident Evil 4, Leon, help!
Yeah.
it got like please kill her. That's why I think I beat it one time just so I could get the armor for Ashley, so she could, even though you don't get to see her because it only looks at her face, because it's the whole thing, but nobody could pick her up and carry her off because she's in armor. And
yeah. Actually, I like the Resident Evil 4. I didn't have any problems with the escort missions. Actually, I think it was very natural. But there are other games with that type of missions. Like right now, I remember in Perfect Dark, where you have to save an alien inside a computer. And that character gets in the middle of everything. You are shooting to the enemy, the damn thing is flying while you are opening fire, and you lose the mission. At least as Ashley Graham in Resident Evil 4, she knew when to cover up, or you can put her behind you, or you can fight as you will.
Yeah, that's one thing about those old games, because I mean that game is like almost 15 years old at this point. Resident Evil 4, which makes me feel so old. But playing that game and the rest of it, like I could definitely see your influence, and I'm glad that a lot of people would take these influences and make it way too shallow, make the story like, there is a lot of fan service in the book, hence the mature rating as well as the violent. But it never felt like you didn't do like I saw a book one time where they had done a double-page spread of a nothing but a woman's ass, and it was funny because it was like, oh my god, the ridiculousness of it. But it was, I can't even remember the artist. It was a black and white comic. It was from like 91, 92. So actually before where everything started getting really over sexual in comics, but supposedly. But I thankfully, that was not your intent, considering you were the for all intents and purposes, the editor-in-chief as well as the colorist, the writer. You did everything. Besides the line art, and that would be Leo Matos, right?
Yes, that's right. He's an artist from Brazil. He's a student of Ed Benes. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh, I know Ed Benes. Oh, I'm a fan of Ed Benes. So,
well, he has a studio, a school in Brazil, where he has a lot of great artists. I'm in love with that style. Yeah, that was the exact thing that my comic needed. It was really great to work with them.
Well, it looks great, and that's one thing. Because going out and so you found his work and then you approached him, or did he approach you?
I approached them. They have a service for any independent artist like me. You can go on pay per page. It depends the artist. Yeah, some are less expensive than others. You will need to be in contact with them to know the prices, because this comic like 2 years old already. I'm not sure of the prices right now.
Okay, but so you reached out, got him involved. Like you said, you wanted it to be about 80 pages. You had to cut pages back, but even still, everything he delivered, everything that you did, it works and it merges together to make a great comic. And I really I've been telling people, every chance I get to retweet your stuff, because I'm like, that's there's no excuse, because that started yesterday, correct? The sale, where it's being sold for $2, the collection.
Yes.
And that's over at Comic Central, correct?
Yes, Comic Central.
Yeah, so if you had no excuse to go over there and pick it up, because it's a really fun comic. I mean, of course, if you're of age, no real small children, but yeah, get your mommy and daddy to do it.
No. That's kind of like my only rule. I don't want to produce material for children, is that I don't feel like I am in that mind state to produce something that children will find entertaining. I'm more like for 17 years old and up. That's why I created this character and this type of content.
Well, I'm glad that you look at it like that. You're not going to compromise your vision. You're not going to. You're right what you would read, correct? You're creating what you would want to see for yourself.
Yes. Yes, because anyways, adults are the ones who buy comics, not children.
Yeah, and considering, considering the content as well, it's like most kids. I mean, it's not. There's the proliferation of the internet. So many different things. I mean, the more random it is, the more likely a kid may be interested. But usually, the more specific, it's like. Well, that's like, for kind of more, sophisticated adult, whatever you want to call it, audiences. Because if you throw a couple, you throw a talking whale in a T-shirt and a street sign that hops around, some weird stuff like that, these kids would probably like it. But a straightforward, fun, action-packed, as well as your healthy dose of fan service comic that's full color. Because you do the colors yourself.
Yes.
Do you have did you have a mission statement going in? Like, I want the colors to where the colors they remind me of like velvet, like almost like the crushed velvet, that kind of very rich. I know it's a weird. I put texture to images sometimes, but your colors just look so like you can grab onto them. Like, that's how they're there. They're not just some thin veneer, but they have like a gravitas to them, a weight to your colors. Was that intentional?
To be honest, I did whatever I could to convince myself this looks okay.
That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, because like I said, I really had no feedback. So some people could say that it's too bright, or some people could say like you that you liked it, the color scheme. I wasn't too convinced, but I had the purpose to finish the work, to make it to look the best possible. Uh, I have a little formation in art, not too much. I was in an art school for 2 3 years. It was really helpful. I received some help sometimes, and that's that's how I work at comic.
Well, I like the fact that you were, even though you were working in a vacuum with little to no feedback and not getting like where I'm kind of the same way. I like to talk about what I work on, but it's almost a double-edged sword because if I talk about it, I'm not actually doing it sometimes. It's like, I have to stop and like, hey, what do you think of this? And then if somebody, like, their tastes are different than my own, even like because I know people, we like about the same things, but then we're not 100% on across the board. And I would have to feel like I'd have to switch something or change, like go against what I felt, my gut. And even though you had to create in a vacuum with, like, and it's tough. It's tough to create in a vacuum. So I understand what you went through. The not having the feedback and not being able to bounce ideas off of someone to actually see, like I think you've got. Hopefully you've gotten some positive feedback from people, because I've loved I'm glad I read the book. I'm glad I picked it up off of Comixology. I said, you know what? I'm a buy local. I'm a support a creator. He's a cool dude. So I was like, went ahead and bought it up, and I was like, this is great. This is fun.
And I'm really thankful for that. Yeah, the vacuum you say, it wasn't intentional. I would like to receive help from somebody, but I know time is very valuable, and I can have a person give me giving me their opinion all the time. I feel I'm not doing something right. For me, I didn't want to be a bother for somebody, but this is this is what happened. It's not really what I wanted, but I think it doesn't look so bad.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there are very few people I know when they work on a project. They are, uh, you know, you're very humble. You're a very humble person. You're not going into it's like, yes, I know I'm the greatest thing ever. No one can beat me. But you're very humble, and I think that's something that's missing with a lot of creators. But not necessarily a lot. There's some of them. They're a little too full of themselves. But with you in your case, I mean, it's for all the struggles you went through getting the project done, and being able to say, this is what I did, I hope you enjoy it. And then yeah, of course I'd enjoy it. Why wouldn't I? Unless you're a prude, unless somebody's a prude, I can't see them not enjoying this. It's like, if you look at the cover, I'm like, okay, that's some people, the cover, there's no way to trick somebody with a cover. They're not going to open it up and then see, two people just sitting around talking, like a Bendis comic, or like Alan Moore just sitting around from hell, just standing there talking about a case or something. No, it's action. It's beautiful women. It's that kind of aspect. It's like, you play Bayonetta. Okay, this is kind of like Bayonetta the comic almost. That kind of aspect. But you're straightforward, and I'm pretty sure you did you art directed the cover to reflect that, right?
Yes, yes. I had a problem with the cover. I thought it was maybe it was too telling of the content of the story. Maybe
No, I think that's actually a great thing. There's so many covers that they look like glorified posters.
Yes.
But the cover, I'm looking at it right now because I had I'm looking at the cover. I'm a very big proponent of the interior artist doing the cover, and that's the case
Yes,
here. But
I
as well
believe
as,
that too.
but also having the cover reflect what's on the inside, and that right there, that to me is more important than, like, you can make a, like one of those even some of the most quote unquote iconic covers, like, okay, here's like Spider-Man doing this, or Superman opening up the shirt, or this, what have you. Those things, yeah, they're fine as a gimmick, but they tell me nothing of the story. They say, like, okay, so Superman opens his shirt. What next? Spider-Man swings. Okay, I've seen that before. This
Yes,
tells me, you know, badass chick, a younger woman who turns out to be badass in her own right, of course.
yes,
Like clinging to our hero Momiji, and then the villain surrounding her on all sides. That's great. That's that's all I need to know. That's what I want to know, and that right there sells me on it. And it's like one of those things I don't. I understand why some creators they'll have kind of the not necessarily the variant cover aspect, but they'll have like a cover that a singular image of the hero, but it tells you nothing of like what's going on. Uh, but I'm glad you didn't do that, even though you're a little, I guess, apprehensive at first. But
yes.
yeah,
Uh, um, yes, I wanted the cover to be to really represent what it was inside, because I also have that problem when sometimes the cover is way too good, but the content, the art is completely different. It's even low quality. Like, I don't want to say that, like, those recent books from G.I. Joe from IDW, where the cover is great, but the interior is really other thing, completely different. Or that Squirrel Girl Japanese comic. The cover is a beautiful artwork of Squirrel Girl from Kotokubiya statues. Sorry,
mm-hmm.
and the inside is the art of the current the Squirrel Girl, the ugly version. He, Actually, a Japanese person tweet that he said something like, there is some limit for cover the cheat, or something like that. Uh, he feels cheated. He feel like Marvel was lying to him, and I can't blame him. Uh, with this cover of Momiji, I thought maybe it was a little spoiling. It was spoiling everything, but I needed that because Momiji is not Batman. Batman, you can have him doing anything and people is gonna buy it. But Momiji, this is basically her first appearance. I needed to communicate what was the character about, what was the story about.
Well, I don't think you spoiled anything. I mean, there are certain, if the cover represented certain beats within the story, if there was a like there's a certain instance near the end of the story, if that was depicted on the cover, that would actually that would spoil it. That would kind of maybe give a little too much away. Give, like, it's like, it's anytime like when they do movie trailers and they show like they show, or like they show the character, like, oh, like they're talking to a bunch of people, like, oh, what happened to you, and then you find out that that's the, like what they call, like so that if that character's there talking, so of course that character survived through the film. So there's no, anytime they do it, like, oh, that character about to die, like, of course they're not, because they're there at the end of the film, at the beginning of the film, unless they do a real M. Night Shyamalan twist. Nothing's going to change. But with with the cover, the way the overall story is, and including the backup, where you're able to, like, it felt it, it felt like the like like, I could tell you were having fun. I could tell that this wasn't a lot of people, they'll put their I don't want to say, like they're kind of, well, it is like people put their politics, their beliefs, their kind of the rationale in their books. None of that's in here.
No, not really. I really don't know how to say that. I suppose I have some ideology in my mind, living through what I create. My idea with Momiji is create a fan servicey character who people can like, but also creating a compelling story somehow. I think that's all my ideology. Maybe I have some issues like it's about corporation, my comic. I'm not trying to say that corporations are evil. They are just like a vehicle for the story.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, they're just like anybody else. I mean, it's like the idea of like, there's certain people that have issues. Like, say, if you were, if you see a movie and it's like, okay, it's the white guy that's the bad guy. So anybody can be the bad guy. They can be black, they could be from Mexico, Mars, Russia, South Africa, Australia, India, Sri Lanka, Japan. Anybody can be a bad guy or bad girl or bad something. Oh, that person's gay, they can't be a bad guy. Yes, they can. Anybody can be a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's all about telling the proper story and actually making the story worthwhile and you didn't like, it wasn't this a movie that's really bad for that. The whole villain corporation is Highlander 2, The Quickening, which is a bad movie to begin with. It's a sequel that was unnecessary. It was a sequel where, oh, they're no longer Highlanders, that they're aliens from the planet Zeist. That's why they're it's really bad. But there's the villain of the film is the actor's name is John C. McGinley. He played Dr. Cox in the TV show Scrubs. And he's playing this very evil corporate guy. We want to control the. Yeah, he's basically playing Dr. Evil. Yeah, it's just it's bland, it's generic. But I didn't get that from the book. They like a lot of people that go out of their way and have, like certain where the references are where a little bit too on the nose. Like certain, if the villain's kind of inspired by this or inspired by that. It wasn't the case in the book. I have to say, it's like I was glad that I was reading it and not like, oh, that's just like this over here. That's just like that over there, where it's not. It doesn't stand on their own. I mean, the look and the look of the book, just not to mention the pacing of it, it all worked, and I'm glad you did it, even though like I said, you were you're under a lot of pressure creating it. But I'm glad you did it.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that, actually, because I was very concerned with the pacing, actually, or not having enough balance. I really wanted to explain a little more what I had a limit for the pages. I couldn't explain a lot of stuff. I satisfied with some of the stuff, like the main villain at the middle of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I want her to be in the ending, but that wasn't possible. So I have to. Well, you read the book.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like I noticed that. Even though after knowing about what happened, as far as like the reasons why you couldn't have it longer, those reasons, that does leave it open for a volume 2, and so hopefully you'll be able to produce a volume 2 in the not too distant future.
I hope so.
And as long as you keep growing that online presence, Twitter and other formats, and there's a lot of people when they want to say they want to support, they want to support people that are, I've never seen you go on like rants and, like blocking lists and sprees and stuff like that. You're a pretty upbeat dude. You're pretty cool. And to actually have that interaction with, and you're creating comics, and you're not doing I've seen some really bad comics. It's like where the person's a nice person, but they produce crap. And thankfully, you don't do that. You have a little higher a higher standard. Well, a lot higher standard.
I try to have some type of standards. I actually want to make a new comic draw by myself, but I can convince me to do that because I have not the quality for this, for that. I want Momiji be drawn as a beautiful woman. I can do that. I still can do that. Maybe in the future, but I prefer to wait a little more.
Well, I totally get that. Being able, not being able to, like, you have it in your head, but it not necessarily like you have the usable skills at the time to actually make that a reality on the illustrated page.
Yes.
And and you were saying like how you wanted to add add more stuff towards the end. But if you had with the the interaction between Momiji and Marilyn, and that interaction, you wouldn't have had that. Like, I like the idea of being able them getting to know each other, like actually being able to the gauntlet, the villain gauntlet is a fun concept if not overdone. Like the idea of like, okay, so here's Marilyn, and there's stuff happens, and then Momiji comes in, and kind of in a way, come with me if you want to live. Yeah. And if you just keep on throwing villains at the two of them, it's like the spectacle movies, like that Marvel does, that the Transformers. Yeah. It's like where I don't care for the character. I don't care what happens because I haven't got to know the character. I haven't. It's like the difference between your standard Disney, Marvels, whatever, and Logan, where I got to know Logan. The movie starts out, this whole he's a mess, and then you get to know Laura, you get to know Caliban and Xavier and that family that they stay with and everything. You get to know these characters, and so when something happens to them or they're doing something or whatever, you care. And I actually cared, like, even though, like you said, it's a, and I've stated previously, it's, very fan servicey, but it doesn't have that. It's not shallow. There's care gone into it. There isn't it's not vapid. It doesn't have this, like, who cares kind of, like, that's the thing. There's care that goes into it. And I like that. And, sometimes not getting everything you wanted out of the story is good, considering it's like it kind of limits what you have to work with, and in doing so, you have to, you have to get creative. And I think you did a damn fine job for what you had. It's like having only a certain amount of tools, and you were able to utilize those properly.
Thanks for that. Yeah, for me, it was very important to make Momiji a character that people would care about her. Even Marilyn, she's a girl. She was just a girl. I wanted to her actually to have something. So I'm glad to hear what you are telling to me, that you care about Marilyn, because that was that would have been a problem for me. The people wouldn't care about her because she's a blonde girl, a school girl, so most people would disregard her.
Yeah, it's like, well, a lot of times when you see her kind of character, they're annoying. They don't have any, like, you actually gave her interesting backstory. You gave the plot made sense. Everything made sense. It worked out. It didn't feel forced. It felt very just, it very appropriate, and it worked. It's like, and if someone could say, like, I like to play devil's advocate, I like to look at it as like, well, what somebody else could see. It's like not necessarily how I believe, but what somebody else would probably, look at it as like, well, why does Momiji have to look like that? Why does, like, certain things look? Why do you see this, like, much skin or this and that? It's like, because if it was everything was toned down, then it would be bland. It wouldn't have as much, like, oomph. It's like, I like there's a with people don't realize that in different parts of the world there are different different tastes. I have a couple of I have a couple of Caliman comics. I have a couple of old, like these comics are in Spanish. I've got some, found some covers for a lot of these, very mature comics from from Mexico and all up and down from through South America, through Spanish-speaking South America, and the covers are very wild compared to the American kind.
Yes,
and I think that plays into it as well a bit. That aspect. It's like where America's very prudish at times. No violence is fine, but the nudity is the skin.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
I really aware of that. My influence actually is more close to manga and anime.
Yeah, definitely, I can see that.
Mexico, yes, it has that soft porn type of art. Sometimes it's good, sometimes not really that great. I wasn't really a fan of that because when growing, I was reading Batman, basically. Yeah, but yeah, in Mexico there is a big tradition on that. I don't know. Let's say some comics could sell in the past, and like 20, 30 years ago, like 1 million copies.
Yeah,
it had a very big market during those years.
You hear it's like we used to have the same thing with comics. In comics in general, like 1 million copies is a common sight, and then now and they would cancel comics if they sold less than like 100,000. Now you're lucky if some of these books sell 100,000, and most of them sell about 50 or 30,000. It's really weird how things have gotten, but and then independent creators at one time during the 90s were actually selling really well. There was a couple of distribution methods where they were selling somewhere like 15, 20,000. These are like one or two man operations, or women in certain cases, where they were self-publishing the books and they were getting them out to the public. And that went away because of Marvel. Actually, Marvel bought a distribution house, one of the rivals, because there's more than one distribution company, not Diamond, but Diamond is the main thing now. And so it limits the distribution methods and makes you a slave to the market system itself, which they don't have to do anything. They'll kill a store, but they don't have to. They go at their own pace. And with you, and there has not been a physical copy created of Red Ninja Momiji Volume 1 yet, has there?
You mean if I gonna print him?
Yes, is there, because there hasn't been a print version, correct?
I wish I could do it, but it's really difficult. It's extremely expensive. I'm from Mexico, and you add the printing part, I also have to ship it, and it would be very expensive for most of the people.
Yeah, that's one thing about even if it's under 100 pages, it's still pretty expensive. That's and there are inexpensive print-on-demand services, but you
need a minimum, right?
Yeah, you need a lot of them. You need a minimum, and even if you don't need a minimum, the quality is not that great, and that's what's the unfortunate part. It's a digital print-on-demand where they use it. And like there's offset printing, like the old comics were made out of, like with the classic where the inks are actually in the paper and everything, not just on it like a printer. And it's a very big night and day difference to see these kinds of comics. And I really think to do a digital print on demand, of Red Ninja Momiji Volume 1, it would not do its service. It would not. It would not look. Yeah, it wouldn't look like a full-fledged comic. And I think the comic deserves a much better presentation than that. But the offset printing, is, not inexpensive. It's not cheap, but it looks great. I mean, it's like that's how that, and I don't know how it would look on pulp though. I know that there is a couple of pulp publishers still out there. I know Alterna, they do
Yeah.
their through a company out of Oregon, the United States, the state of Oregon. But there's minimums that you have to reach, and there's certain things. But but with a page count of Momiji, I think they can only do about 60 pages, so that would be a hindrance as far as like size wise and everything. But hopefully one day we'll get a collection, because I would love to see that.
For now, I'm focusing on making follow up for the digital market at the very least. I really want to see a second volume if it's possible.
Yeah, I'd like to see that as well, because there's like putting books out through Comic Central and Comixology. I mean, there is a lot of people look at it as, oh, that's just the easy way of doing it. But you were kind of mentioning to me previously that it's not as easy as people think. It's not painless.
It's not that easy. Well, if you are an independent creator and you have a comic, you want to sell it on Comixology, you upload the file, but to be published, you need to wait like 2 or 3 months. You don't have control over that. I think it's supposedly for quality control, but I think it's to make the guided view. And they keep receiving lots of comics. I suppose that's why they takes too much time.
Yeah, so that right there, that kind of giving over that control and having that, and having them, there's like I would feel like there would be kind of a trust issue on that regard between the creator and the distributor in that regard.
Yeah, in part it's like a wall between Comixology and the creator. I haven't talked with anybody because sadly I don't know anybody who is selling their comic in Comixology, but that's my experience. It's a little hard to sell the comic. You don't control the price because the very minimum is 99 cents. You can offer a free comic, for example. I wanted to do that like a year ago, but that wasn't possible. The price is fixed. You can change it unless you communicate with them.
And so, in that right there, being unable, that's with Comixology, correct?
Yes, Comixology.
Yeah, because Comic Central, because you got the sale going on, it's much more,
it's much more amiable. You have more control.
Okay, yeah, because that's what I was getting from it. Because I know a lot of more people seem like they're using Comic Central as far as they're kind of self-publishing digitally as getting their product out there. And with Comic Central, I'm not mistaken, you can get it on PDF as well as other formats, or just PDF alone.
PDF. Actually, both sites use PDF only.
Okay, yeah, because I know some sites still use like CBR, like CBZ format to download as well, like certain I guess compression formats and stuff. But yeah, with Comixology, having that, they have the bigger name, and they're underneath the Amazon, the moniker, as far as a brand under Amazon.
Yes, as far as I can tell, the advantage of Comixology is the brand. Everybody buys in Comixology, so I think dismiss Comixology. It will be a mistake for some creators.
Yeah, so like to seek out other formats like that kind of, they're not necessarily going to go anywhere. Comixology isn't, but I've had more issues with Comixology. Whereas if I've had where I bought comics, mainly ones like with my store, they sold out and they're not able to get me a copy, or there's a big sale, and like, oh, I'll buy that for like I normally pay 15, 20 bucks and it's down for like $3. I'm like, okay, I'll buy that. But the reader, their little guided view mess will infinite load. I've never had a physical comic ever do that to me. I've never had a PDF ever do that to me.
Yeah.
So, and not all books you can actually download. You can't actually own it. But with Comic Central, you can go there, which I got the link in the description. So you can go there, go ahead, buy it. It's down to $2 for until the 14th of March of this year, 2018. And you could pick it up as a PDF and have it for keeps and be able to read it anytime, as long as you have, your device, whether it be a tablet or a laptop or PC, and actually be able to read Red Ninja Momiji without having to worry about loading or any of that other stuff. And that right there, that's like actually a really good thing. A lot of these bigger creators, like even the ones that they're like, they used to work for like Marvel, DC, and all this, they go there, do their own thing. I don't necessarily understand if they understand that keeping the physical, keeping the physical format there by itself and not actually offering a permanent download, whether it be PDF or otherwise, is a good thing. I mean, but you're like, here, buy my comic, read my comic, enjoy my comic, and you can read it anytime as that PDF format. And yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, a lot of people don't kind of look into that, but
yes. Sorry. Yes, I feel that the ability to have the digital file is really important because at the very least you give the reader something to hold up, something they can keep. The problem with Comixology, especially with DC and Marvel, it's like renting. It's like a rent service. And some people don't buy digital because of that, because they can't keep the file. They can read when they don't have internet connection.
Nope. And that's the problem. Like, you can't really, that right there, having something I paid for, whether it's on sale or not. It's like
because you are paying full price.
Exactly. A lot of the time you are, because like Marvel, especially with their prices. But
oh yes,
and that's they're for good or bad. I still collect a bunch of trade paperbacks. I still collect individual comics occasionally, not as much as I used to. But I collect these things, and not just maybe they'll be worth money one day. Not really that, but mainly because I want to have access to them anytime and not have to fire up anything. Like if I want to, grab Spawn Volume 10, I can grab it right now, Book 10. Or if I want to look through, Cyberforce, I can look through Cyberforce. I can look through any of these things at any given time, and some stuff is up on Comixology, some of it isn't, because for whatever reasons, the negatives back in the 90s weren't stored properly, or they were damaged or destroyed intentionally or unintentionally. Who knows? Some of these stuff, there's rights issues as far as certain characters, and like I have the Spawn Angela trade paperback by Neil Gaiman and Greg Capullo. That's never going to see a light of day on Comixology or even through Marvel.
I didn't know that.
It's a great comic. It's
I have it actually physical. Yes.
The individual issues or the trade?
No, I didn't know you can find that in Comixology.
No! I'm saying that's the reason why the physical form is great, because you'll never find it on Comixology.
Yeah, a lot of crossovers you can find on Comixology, like the DC versus Marvel in the 90s. You can't find it anymore.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, it's like, well, that right there, they're talking about doing a new collection of that, like an omnibus collection. Because of the whole, Marvel and DC kind of getting back to like playing with each other a little better. But those issues are, even though they're looked down upon, they're hard to come by. Most people, people keep a hold of theirs. I've not seen that many in the back issue bins. But that's the thing with comics. I mean, there is, you got to have a love for it. I clearly could see that you have a love for comics, not as well as video games, and that right there to influence your, in a way, you kind of remind me of and as far as like the taking the video game, ideas and these concepts and translating them in a interesting fashion. Joe Madureira with Battle Chasers, kind of like that, where his the RPG aspect, and you were able, but you're doing it in a modern day. Instead of the RPG, the action adventure, the shooter stuff.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yes. For some reason I gravitate to that style of character. I actually have in my mind another characters, and most of them are based on video games, but with like shooter genre or survival horror genre. I hope in the future I can show a little more in that regard.
I really hope you can too. I hope it's, like I said, sometime this year. Hopefully, some things come together where you're able to raise funds for one way or another, and make this happen, because I really love the look of the comic. Not just not necessarily just the line work, but I'm talking about the colors. I'm talking about the world, and that's. Did you sketch the character designs out? And as far as from the heroes to the villains, from Momiji to Marilyn to the Snake Squad and everything. Did you come up with the like say the thumbnails or sketches or concepts?
It was sketches and it was everything. It was sketches, it was concept, it was thumbnails. Leo Matos, he actually designed the shoulders for Snake.
Okay.
I gave him some liberty with that. For example, Momiji and Marilyn, I designed them. But those characters also have a lot of influence from Leo Matos. He was very nice for me to work with him because he understood what I wanted to create.
And that right there, actually having being able to have that dialogue between the writer, creator, and artist is a good thing, because I know a lot of people, they've worked with the mercenaries of the comics kind of industry. They'll come in they're hired for a job. They didn't necessarily have a have a vested interest in the project, but they're there because that's their job. They're come here to do a job, and they're going to do it. But it's like where I've heard some horror stories when that happens. But I'm glad that it's not there. There was no horror story for this, because that would.
Yeah, the thing with the Brazilians, with the students of Red Venice Studios, they are people 100% dedicated to that craft. The problem with some artists is, in my case, sometimes they don't have too much time, and so it's hard to work. I don't have a horror story actually, but yes, I know how hard it can be to be a comic book artist in many places.
Yeah, because when you're looking at working on comics, people look at it as, oh, it's a simple thing. I just got to draw some few lines. It's not a simple process. It's you got to, if you want to have if you want to do a dreamlike comic where nothing really makes sense, it can be pretty simple. I mean, you could throw a couple, throw things out of nowhere and like amaze people. But if you actually want to tell a solid, concise story, you got to write it, rewrite it, revise it, go through it, thumbnail it out in certain cases. You got to come up with the character designs. You can't just, oh, we have the villain character, villain A, villain B, villain C, and just we'll worry about it later. You can't worry about it later. You have to come up with the designs so that you know what the character looks like, front, side, back, top, bottom, all that, depending on the detail. It's like this, like you were saying, it's like design. The video games inspired. It's like designing a video game. Here's this level. Here's these characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to let anything to chance to the artist, to Leo Matos. I didn't want him to do all the job. I wanted to help him as much as possible. I designed the characters the best I could. I'm not a great artist. I actually feel I'm still very terrible. But for example, still Shock Doll, one of the villains in the comic, and the pilot of the carrier, the
Mhm.
flying carrier. I decided them as the best possible way to so Leo Matos could draw them.
And and that right there, like that, like you were saying, like helping your artist and working, and not just here. Like there's certain people that I've known, I've been told about how to avoid some people, and names will not be named. There's only about 3 of them, but
No problem.
they're where I'm in charge. I'm paying you. You do what I say, and that kind of
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. That doesn't get you nowhere. More flies with
No,
honey, not
that's
vinegar.
that's very destructive. That's very destructive relationship. It doesn't work.
It is.
I can't be like that with people, especially when the people has more talent than me. To be
Well,
honest,
I think you probably got some talent in there. You got more talent than you probably. Like you said, like I said, you're
yeah,
really a humble person. But
yeah. I have talent for creating stuff, but maybe for writing and designing. I am a graphic designer actually. I have the talent for that. I can say that, but I can't for my life make a decent drawing. Still, is the part of all this that obsesses me in some shape, way, or form.
well, I like hopefully, like I said, you'll get that opportunity to go ahead and start on a volume 2 or stuff that could work up its way to be volume 2, be collected as a volume 2, whether it be a series of chapters or one long form story. Uh, that's the thing. I'm up like as far as comics reading goes. I think almost any form of storytelling uh, is valid. Like whether it's a series of like say 4 to 6 page chapters, kind of like how 2000 AD and a couple of other, like say like mainly 2000 AD, how they would do their comics. Like here's a Judge Dredd story, it's 6 pages. Here's this story, 6 pages, 6 pages, 6 pages. And
Mhm.
then at times they would have them collected as like here's a 6 pager, but it's part 1, then part 2, and then you can release it digitally, get interest up that way, have a PayPal option or Patreon or what have you, and be able to there's certain people that will could hopefully support it, keep it going. I know sometimes like with your case you'd need some kind of startup capital, to pay your artist properly to keep it going, because it isn't a lot of people, they don't realize that it to keep a high standard for certain books, especially if you're not the one illustrating it. You can't just get generic artists from wherever. You
Yeah.
have you have to have a proper artist, and hopefully you can get Leo back to work on the second volume.
Yes, I want that actually to work with him again. Yeah, I actually have a couple of people I checking on.
Mhm.
I can tell who are they because I don't want to compromise them
Okay,
right
that's
now
perfectly
because
understandable.
because first nothing is written yet. Uh, I need to be more careful with my plans in that aspect.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, they'll talk out of turn in a way. They're like maybe a little too excited, or they're
Yeah,
a little too anxious to
yeah.
give
I
away
don't
the
like to
store.
promise. I
Yeah.
don't like to make promise I can keep. To be
Yeah,
honest.
I'm the same way. I try to be the same way. There's times where like if somebody asks you, "Oh, what are you working on?" and I have to and instead of telling them nothing, which is my old way of doing it, I softened up. Unfortunately, I've softened with age, and I
Hmm.
tell them, and so then I have to, if something changes, I'm like, well, I made a liar out of myself. Uh, but yeah, so hopefully, I mean, you'll be able to work on the second volume. Go ahead and kind of plot it out and get more ideas, and and get more, get the funds and everything you need, and hopefully this sale that's going on now, like I said, on Comixology, that will to make this happen, to actually make. Sorry, Comic Central. Not I don't want to say Comixology, but Comic Central, which, you know, like I says, till the 14th, to March 14th, and you'll be able to, you know, get more funds for it and more people to check it out and actually enjoy the comic for what it is, a solid comic, really fun. You know, the proper amount of you know, the fan service, the sex appeal, all that. It's great, and I know your time is very valuable, so I figured go ahead and wrap it up there. And you know, I appreciate you coming on, so thank you for this kind of. And it's a little shorter than my normal ones, which are like 2.5, 3 hours sometimes. So yeah, it might be a little too much for you, but we got to do this again some other time. This was really fun.
No problem. It was interesting and fun for me, actually, because I'm not I don't speak too much. I have like I'm a little anxious, not too much, but I try to fight that because
you're doing great.
I need to talk. I need to do this if I want my comic to be known for more people.
Yeah, I know there's a lot more people on Twitter. They do live streams and podcasts and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, you got a great comic to sell. I mean, you're a cool dude. It's like, you know, like I say, I can't say a bad word against you. And you know, and I wish you nothing but the best. And
thank you.
And like I said, thank you for coming on. And I'll be streaming again in about an hour, folks. So anybody watching still, see you in an hour. All right, Rodrigo. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Larry. See you soon.
All right.